Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Jay from Coding with Jaybird, where I upload weekly tutorials to help build your confidence in coding. This is part 7 of my beginners series, JavaScript tutorial for beginners, and we'll be covering JavaScript objects and how we write them. Let's get started, shall we? Up until now, we've looked at JavaScript primitive data types. An object is a non-primitive data type. So let's get started with building our first object. I've created a JavaScript objects folder here on my desktop, which I'll open in my VS Code. Now that we're inside our JS objects folder, we can see that I've created an objects.html file, which simply has an h1 tag called JavaScript objects. And at the bottom of the body, I've added a script tag, which sources the main.js file in the JS folder. I've started my live server in the Chrome browser, which you can see on the right-hand side here. And let's open up the developer console with Option Command I. Okay, now we can go into our main.js and start working on our JavaScript logic. So today's topic that we'll be covering is objects. An object in JavaScript is a set of properties, which are name-value pairs. These property values can be of any data type and can also be a function. If a property name has the literal value of a function, this is called a method. Now we'll have a look at an example of this soon. For now, let's just create a simple object. Let's think about some regular everyday objects that we use, such as a car, our home perhaps, a cup of coffee, or even our computers. We can start by creating a simple computer object. There are two most common ways of creating objects in JavaScript. Now the first one, which is the most popular one, and also the preferred one, is an object literal method. We can create an object using the curly braces. We simply declare a variable name and have it equal some property name and value pairs inside the curly braces. We could even create an object with no properties by using empty curly braces. So let's just make a very simple empty object, and I'll just call it empty object equals empty curly braces. Now, if we were to console log this, we should see an object here. And if you open this down arrow here and expand this, you'll see we have empty curly braces and its type is an object. So we've created an object, but it has no name value pairs or no properties attached to it just yet. Let's create a myComputer object. So we would do that by typing const myComputer to declare this myComputer equals curly braces. So we're declaring it as an object. And in here, we would simply type in name value pairs. And the way we do this is we have the name, colon, the value, and then comma, and then we repeat. So let's say we want to give it a type property. So type of myComputer. And then this property will have a literal value of laptop. So basically I'm saying my computer is of type laptop, comma, and then the next property. So let's say I want to talk about the model. So the model of my computer, so the model property has a value of MacBook. Now I can give it a size property, 13. So you'll notice I have string values here. Now I have a number value. So you can have different data types in here. Now we have color as another property. And I'll say it's space gray. Oops, space gray. For now, let's just output this myComputer to the console to see what's actually going on inside of it. If we expand this arrow on the right here, we can see our myComputer object, and it's of data type object. And we can see the properties that we've created in alphabetical order. We can even see the ones that are string data type because they're in quotations, and the one that's just a simple number because it's a number data type. Okay, now what if I wanted to access a property of this myComputer object so that I could create a list or perform some calculation? So right now I've created this, but I need to find a way to access these values. So there are two ways to access the properties in an object. Okay, so the first way, and it's the most preferred method, is the dot notation. And the way this works is we can say myComputer dot, and then the property that we want to access. So let's say model. Now, nothing's going to happen if I save this because I haven't displayed this in the console or put it in an alert or something. So I need to send this to the browser. So let's wrap this in a console.log. And then when we save it, we can see the value MacBook. So this tells us we have a, MacBook. Now we can use this dot notation like any variable in our JavaScript logic. Now I'm going to use template literals, or what's called template strings here, with the backticks and $sign for some dynamic JavaScript code. So let's console log something else. And here I'll use my backticks like I mentioned. I use my $sign curly braces. And in here I want to say, let's see the color. I use my space gray. So to use that, I can reference my computer object dot color to get the space gray value that's stored in the color property of the my computer object. So I use my space gray $sign curly braces, and now I want to say MacBook. So my computer dot, now MacBook is stored in the model property. So I can add model in here to make my videos. And when I save this, we can see I use my space gray MacBook to make my videos. So it pulled out the model and color properties from the my computer object. Now we can add properties using dot notation as well. So let's say I wanted to add a model year. I could say my computer dot model year equals 2021. And now if we were to log this to the console, we can see our object has been updated here. We have the model year property 2021 added to it now. So here we're adding a property to an object. So let's have a look at updating a property of an object. So if we can add a property, surely we can update a property. So right now my size for this computer or laptop is 13. So let's say we want to change that size. Now I've just recently updated my computer to the new 14-inch. So let's say my computer.size equals 14. Now let's log this to the console to see if it worked. And surely it works. So we're actually able to update our properties using dot notation as well. Now, there's something I haven't covered yet, which is creating a function inside of this my computer object. So let's say I wanted to create a function called sleep. It would then be referred to as a method. So whenever a function belongs to an object, we call it a method. So we have a sleep method. Now it's just a simple property called sleep, but the way we make it a function is by typing the function keyword. And here in curly braces, we define the function itself. Now this is just going to return something simple. So let's say it's returning a string. When I close my MacBook, it goes to sleep. Now I want MacBook to keep changing based on whatever is stored in the model property of this object. So I can delete MacBook and replace it with some dynamic JavaScript code. So we do that with our $sign curly braces. Now I can't just write model in here. If you're trying to access a property of an object from inside of the object, you have to refer to it using the this keyword. So we have to use this and using our dot notation. So this dot model. So just like we did over here where we said my computer dot model, that's because we were outside of the object. And now because we're inside the object, the way we pull out the model value is by saying this my computer object's model property and then replace that in here. So what does that mean? This refers to the owner of the function. So here we have a my computer object that owns this sleep function. Thus, this dot sleep means the sleep property of this my computer object. Just like this dot model means the model property of this my computer object. Okay, so this can be a bit tricky and confusing, but the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. Now let's try to access this method or function that's a property of our my computer object. So methods are functions that are properties of an object. And the way we can access it is simply by writing my computer dot, and then the method itself or the property name is sleep. And because it's a method, we must follow it with the round brackets. Now this won't do anything because all we're doing is up here it's saying return this value. So the value is being returned, but it's not being displayed in the browser. So again, we're going to have to wrap this in some kind of an alert or console.log statement. And now you can see we have when I close my MacBook, it goes to sleep, which we're getting from here. When I close my MacBook, it goes to sleep. Now that we've had a look at dot notation, let's have a look at the other type of notation that's used to pull out properties of an object. And this one's called bracket notation. The way bracket notation works is, we're going to put this in a console log so we can see it. We would write the name of the object, my computer, and now we follow it with square brackets. And inside the square brackets, we use a string to pass in the name of the property that we want to access. So let's say I want to access the color property. We can see when I save this, space gray. So we're effectively able to pull out my computer's color property value. So we can also add a new property using bracket notation. So add a new property. And the way we do that is exactly the same. We reference the actual object itself, follow it with square brackets, and inside of it, we pass in a string value of the name of the property we'd like to create. So I'd like to create a case property. And I'm going to say I have a rose gold case on my laptop. Now when I look at this in the console, my computer, I should see the updated property. And here you can see case of rose gold has been added to our object. Now we can also update the value of a property in an object using the square bracket notation. So update property. And we do this by typing, again, the object name, square brackets, and then inside we pass in a string of the property to change. So I want to change the model. And now instead of just calling it a MacBook, I'm going to say it's a MacBook Pro. And again, if I look at this in the console, I'll see that we've updated the value. And there it is. The model's been updated from MacBook to MacBook Pro. So we've looked at the object literal way of creating an object. Let's have a look at the other method, which is called the new keyword method. And this takes longer to type, so it's not the most preferred method of creating an object, and there's some other complications that arise with this as well, but it's still important to know. So I can say let my dog, so I'm declaring my dog as a variable, and inside of it I'm saying I want to create a new object. Now you can type object like that or like that, they both do the same thing. Now this is just an empty object, I haven't given it values, so if I were to display this value of my dog in the console, we see empty brackets and we can see it's of type object. So we've effectively created an object called my dog. Now it's easy to add properties to this after, but it takes a bit longer because you have to rewrite the name of the actual object every single time. So using dot notation, I can say my dog dot name equals Nikki, and then I can say my dog dot breed equals poodle, and so on. My dog dot age equals 7. And now if I were to log this to the console, this my dog object, I would see All the updated values that I've just added, age, breed, and name properties, are now added to the my dog object. All right, everyone, this is it for today's video. I just wanted to cover some basics of JavaScript objects. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I've been enjoying making this playlist so far. It's been quite a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying watching these videos and are learning quite a bit from them as well. If you have liked it, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so I can continue to make more great videos for you in the weeks to come. Until next week, have a great week, and don't forget, keep on coding.